All right, well, I know we'll have more people joining as we go. A few people had mentioned they were going to be running late, but we will get started in the interest of time. So excited to have everybody back here today for our second Empowerment quarterly meeting. I'll just tell you now, we are recording the session. A few people had asked since they were going to have to drop early or weren't able to join. So we will have that recording after the session. And the chat function is open for questions, so please feel free to drop any questions into the chat, and at the end of the session, we'll try to get through some of those. So today we're going to be talking about business plans, and it's hard to believe that we are already halfway through September, and Q4 is only 2 weeks away. And so as we're heading into the final quarter of the year, means business planning season is upon us. And knowing that this looks really different from office to office, we have two brokers joining us today to talk about how they've implemented a business plan to help them be successful. So this is something that I know people tend to think about sometimes as kind of checking the box for JLL and having to turn in your plan by the end of the year, but this really is something that can help you be successful and lay out what your goals and your action items are for the upcoming year. So we have two people here who are going to share with us a little bit more about how we can make some of those actionable items a reality. So as I mentioned, joining us today is Anna Ho from our Toronto office. Anna actually joined JLL in April of 2020 after spending 10 years in the world of nonprofits and social work, and has a really unique perspective on what it is like to join this industry in the middle of COVID and how to implement processes that are helping to set her up for long-term success. And we also have Joe Judge joining us from our DC office. So Joe leads the tenant rep team out of DC and has been with the company for 22 years. He's consistently been a top gun and is going to talk today about the system he implements with his new associates to help them plan for success and some of how that has changed with COVID. So Anna and Joe are both going to share some pieces of their business planning process with us. As I said, just feel free to drop any questions into the chat and we will get to as many of those as we can at the end of the session. And with that, I'll hand it over to Anna to kick us off.
Thanks, Casey. Super excited to be here. And as Casey mentioned, I'm from the JLL Downtown Toronto, Canada CRG team. Really excited to share with you my business plan. But before that, I thought I'd share a little bit about my sort of unconventional background, as many people are usually very curious as to how I found myself in real estate. So I did work almost 10 years in non-for-profit. I started off as a frontline crisis counselor for victims of crime, so domestic violence, sexual assault, homicide, suicide. And then I was also responsible for a violence prevention program for high schools in the city of Toronto. And then I moved into doing child welfare policy work for the government. And I really enjoyed what I was doing, at the time, and built a successful career. Also consulted on a bunch of fundraising work for non-for-profits and public policy. But it reached a point where, as many social workers and trauma workers come across, is you feel like you need a change and you are tired of doing trauma work and you just needed something different, something new. And so I actually took this opportunity to go back to school. Ended up at the University of Toronto studying my master's in social work. And for my internship, I was working for a large university here in Toronto. And it was supposed to be for fundraising, but somehow I ended up fundraising for this real estate project. And that was my very first exposure into commercial real estate, having no idea what the industry was all about at the time. I sort of caught the bug, as you will say. And then here I am last April in the middle of a global pandemic, joined JLL, where my focus now is really working with non-for-profit groups. So charities, social services, education, medical, or government. So now diving into the business plan portion, I really developed this plan, I would say, in the first 6 to 8 months of joining brokerage. So keep that in mind as we're going through this plan. And the document was really meant to be a performance evaluation. But, as I was working on this performance evaluation, I realized that I needed some additional accountability measures. And so somehow it just transformed into, this business plan, which I will screen share now. Here we are. You should be able to see it, hopefully. Okay, perfect. So The business plan is really divided into 3 parts, 1 page each to keep it simple, easy to maintain so it doesn't get overwhelming. And by nature, I tend to be a very detailed-oriented person. I can easily get into the weeds, as Joe does as well, so I've heard. And so this structure works really well for me because, I can revisit this plan every quarter. It's simple, it's easy to follow, and it doesn't get overwhelming. So the first section is really focused on business development and growth, and then it moves into personal/professional development, and then into a self-reflection and evaluation portion. And so I structured this plan with kind of key headings: goal, the due date, comments, and then my progress. And within this plan, there's a variety of things that I use in my toolbox to really help drive self-accountability, success, and inspiration. So for the business development portion of it, as you can see, there's really only 8 to 10 things here. I focused on key actionable items that I can do to help drive revenue. So one of the things was to help when I first joined, and not to throw my team under the bus, but I looked at the pitch and I went, where's JLL's tech tools? I heard all about JLL's tech tools, and that's why I joined JLL. I'm so confused. So I said, okay, we need to create a brand new pitch to really incorporate not only JLL's tech tools, but a holistic approach to the office and the people. And then I said, we need to track our progress and our success with clients. So, why don't we have a client satisfaction survey? And then obviously a really important part for obviously juniors is the business development portion. So, I watched a lot of webinars with Kimmery, with Bob Mannequin, with top producers in JLL. And one of the consistent themes that I heard was when you're a junior broker, you need to be spending at least 50% of your time doing business development. And you have to book that time in, you have to carve it out. And so I love numbers, I love things that are measurable. So I said, okay, my goal is to work backwards. What is the revenue that I want to produce, in the first 1 to 3 years of joining brokerage? Realistically, I set a 3-year timeline because your first 2 years is really building your pipeline. And then I realized, okay, how many calls or how many assignments do we need to win? What's the square footage that we need to help me achieve this revenue goal? So that's the business development portion. And I'll leave that there for now, pretty self-explanatory, the rest of the content that's there. And then the personal and professional development portion, I think this is a section that a lot of brokers can sometimes neglect because we just don't have enough time in the day. And I really want to just kind of focus on this piece. And I think that, in talking to top brokers as well and mentors, it's really important that we're just constantly networking, connecting with people in and outside of the organization and in and outside of your immediate team. I think that helps you diversify the perspectives that you're exposed to and the different kind of business development styles that you're exposed to. So for me, one of the key things that I included in this was building my own personal board of directors. So it's somebody that you go to for business or professional advice, for career advice, and people that you go to for life advice. Not just only focused on work, but what about personal life and relationships and things like that? Kind of having your own, go-to team that is going to have your back. And then the other piece that I also included in this was taking the time to take professional development courses. I have to be honest and completely transparent that I have not necessarily always met this goal. The past 4 months, as I was saying Ashley earlier, I had, gotten married, bought a house, sold the house, moved, went on my honeymoon. So guaranteed from June to September, I did not meet this goal. But before that, I was on track and I was doing a really good job of every 2 months, making sure I at least carve out that 15 to 45 minutes to take a leadership and development course. Just even as a refresher or to build on your current skills and see what other people are doing. And then the next piece is really inspired, I guess, more so from my background in social work, the importance of always taking the time for self-reflection, assessing where you are now, where you want to be, what are your barriers to success? So I broke it down into both technical and interpersonal. So, truthfully, COVID-19 obviously being an obvious one, but I was having a lot of technical issues with my JLL laptop for whatever reason at one point. So that was a bit of a barrier because I literally did not have a functioning computer for a whole week. And then some of the interpersonal items, working in a remote environment, we have to also recognize how that affects our ability to communicate, to learn through observation, to collaborate, and obviously your own team's creativity. But then also, recognizing, okay, well, what are some of the tools that can help you counteract some of these barriers or counter these barriers? And that's your team. That's, taking the initiative to build on your own skill sets and your knowledge base. And then your own self-care and adaptability and resilience and your own intrinsic motivation to keep going. And then recognizing kind of your personal top 5 strengths and top kind of 5 areas of opportunities where you could really grow. And then as you can see here, I kind of ended off with a bit of a mission statement. So this really just wraps up, and wanted to communicate to my managers that, for me, I really aspire, in the next kind of 3 years to become a senior associate, to continue to grow my skills, stay on top of the market trends, and have quality conversations with my manager. And then at a later point, I see myself as a top producer manager who facilitates teamwork and encourages colleagues to strive for excellence, collaboration, and trust. So that's just a really nice, 1 to 2 liner to summarize, what your ultimate goal really is and why, you're even following this business plan in the first place. And then the last section that I'll talk about is the actual evaluation portion. So I had created this business plan that I just went through. And then, I'd say about a few months after, immediately, I had to do a mid-year evaluation. And one of the tools that I really wanted to highlight is, actually, before I do that, I should probably just mention this for me was tracking sort of the key accomplishments that I had reached, and then some kind of evidence or examples to back that up. And then I also used a 4-level skills assessment scale, which I'll screen share now. So this skills assessment questionnaire was created based on my team senior brokers and this sort of questionnaire that they previously used with their associates in the past. And I adapted it to the JLL's kind of 4-level scale rubric that we have. So coming from a social work background, I really love both quantitative and qualitative data, and I think they're equally important. But when it comes to managerial conversations that we're having, sometimes I find that, the comments that we get are very focused on qualitative feedback. And so while that's important, like I said, love hard numbers to really track my progress, and more importantly, how our managers view our progress. I think when you're negotiating, let's say, a promotion or team splits, you have to be able to demonstrate your value add and why you deserve it. And simply a positive comment from your manager or even a client isn't always enough to build your case. So having a skills assessment questionnaire like this that's quantifiable, that your manager completes, it really keeps you on your toes to make sure that you're actually meeting or exceeding expectations from your manager's point of view. So I really love this tool. And then, when we revisit this again, I'll be able to kind of see my own progress in a very, kind of quantifiable way. And then the last piece, and I'll just finish off here, is I like to keep a achievements and positivity folder. I think we all have tough days, where we kind of doubt ourselves or we feel tired or not motivated because the market is slow. And the content in this folder is really meant to sort of be your source of motivation and inspiration, and it reminds you on those tough days, why you're doing what you're doing. But it also acts as a resume or CV builder. If you ever need to go for that promotion or go for that job or that position, you kind of have evidence to actually draw upon, real examples of where you've performed really well. And this strategy, funny enough, I later discovered was also something that a lot of Fortune 500 CEOs also use as well. So it's worked really well for me. And I guess I would kind of just, in conclusion, wrap it off and say that, you know, you have to really find what works for you, because this plan is very, very custom to my way of working and my style. Whereas for other people, you know, maybe you need a little bit more detail or maybe a little bit less, whatever works best for you. But this is meant just to be a framework to kind of encourage you to set your own self-accountability measures, and then also get really quality, quantifiable feedback from your manager. And you have to really take the initiative. So some of the things that I listed in my plan seems like it's a lot of work in the beginning, but once you do it, you repeat it, it becomes second nature. It just becomes your everyday habit. And I would say that try your best to just be consistent. Like, you're not going to reach every single task or goal in this list perhaps, but you know, you set a timeline, you do your best, you put in the works, and you'll eventually, you know, see the results. So I hope this is really helpful to some of you, and I'll just open it up, I guess, back to Casey for, you know, any questions, yeah, and discussion. Stop screen sharing.
Thanks, Anna. That's awesome. I'm so impressed that you took the time to do all of that. I think Ashley had just mentioned in the chat, is it possible that you'd be willing to share that template with the group to email out afterwards? It's obviously highly customizable. People would have to kind of plug in their own goals and challenges as well, but you've done a lot of good work on that template already.
Yeah, for sure. More than happy to. We'll definitely do that.
And I was also just curious, you know, how often are you revisiting this, and how much time do you feel like when you revisit it, you're spending time like really reflecting on the last period since you last looked at it?
Yeah, I try to at least glance at it like every quarter, just to make sure, okay, are there some key items that like I haven't hit? One of the things that I forgot to mention actually earlier also was just using your calendar to actually plug in some of these key milestones and timeline. So whether it's literally like schedule a meeting with manager to review, you know, my business plan, and you send them the invite in advance, you know, so that's really been helpful for me. But at least I try to, you know, really see this like every like 2.5 to 3.5 months or so, just depending on, you know, what else is going on. But yeah, that's kind of my timeline. I think you're
I'm also just curious, do you ever, sorry. I was also just curious, do you ever find like maybe you get 6 months through the year and you say, okay, that goal wasn't realistic based on X, Y, or Z factors, I should modify it in this way and change the goals in any way over the course of the year?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, what ended up happening is one of the goals that was on the very first page, I kind of crossed out. You know, I originally set like the goal of doing it, I think by, I want to say it was like beginning of February, and things got really busy. And this particular task was going to benefit actually the overall Toronto TRG team. We were essentially going to create a Toronto TRG team website. And I was supposed to support, you know, our practice lead at the time to get this up and running. But, you know, we both got busy and kept getting pushed back. And then the timeline eventually got updated to July because we had lost our marketing person who was helping us with this. And then what ended up happening was we developed JLL Journeys, which was basically a customized website for each team. So that actually replaced the need for us to even put in the work. So it was really nice because I had everything prioritized. You know, we didn't end up putting in like, you know, the hours that we needed to get this up and running. So for sure, like always kind of revisit and adapt as we need to make those goals and timelines more realistic.
That's smart. I was kind of laughing as you said that because I remember setting my goals with Laura, who was my manager last year when I was an analyst in January of 2020. And then we sat down to do my review in December of 2020. And I said, well, I actually haven't done any of these things. I accomplished plenty of things. Not one thing I wrote down here because COVID happened and none of these things suddenly were applicable anymore. So flexibility really is key.
Yeah, Casey, I was telling the same thing to Joe this morning when we were on another call. It's like, I was just winging it. And then I looked back in July and I was like, oh, that really was not like the best way I should be spending my time, and kind of redirected and rethought through some of that. So I think modifying mid-year or the first quarter is fine once you kind of get into it and realize where your priorities should lie.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Joe, with that, that's a good transition. We can hand things over to you for the second half here.
Great. Well, can you hear me okay, Casey?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with everybody. And Anna, so many amazing takeaways, such an impressive business plan. I hadn't seen it, so knowing we would be presenting together, I was looking forward to seeing your plan. As you know, it's a one-size-fits-one approach, and I think we could all agree business planning is overwhelming. It's like getting a 747 off the ground. There's so much time and effort and energy invested into, okay, where do I start? How much time and effort do I invest in this versus that? My numbers, my meeting counts, my personal goals, and then all that, analysis paralysis sometimes leave people, with nothing, and where it's so much less than it could be if we just maybe kept it simple. And so what I thought I could focus on just for a few minutes is, if we think of a wheel, just a few spokes on the wheel that are really catered more towards the economic side, the quantitative side of your business development plan. And some of the tools that I developed many, many moons ago. I started off as an intern with the firm right out of college 22 years ago, as Casey indicated. And I started in our Cincinnati office, and we had 5 people in our office. And I found myself as an associate year one, just kind of not really being monitored. I was given a phone and given directional guidance on what to do. But I spent the majority of my first year wondering kind of what success looked like, and not knowing if I made a bunch of calls, if it was a good day or a bad day. I was busy, but I didn't know if I was gaining ground. And so I found myself just trying to create methods of measurement to where I could leave the office knowing unemotionally that I had advanced, to the goal that I was trying to accomplish. And my comfort tends to be in Excel. So trying to make this a little bit more exciting than just flipping through Excel documents, we've converted this to a PowerPoint today, but I'm more than happy to share the Excel files for everybody after the call if that's of interest. And so let me know when you can see my screen. I'm gonna get a thumbs up. Okay, wonderful, thanks. So flip to maybe the first page here. So key takeaways, and Anna did a great job of mentioning a few of these. For me, I like to keep it simple, and it's understanding your current situation. And so when we create a plan, for those that are either right out of college, this is your first job, you could be transitioning, as Anna did, from another industry, whatever that is. And the current situation in this case, again, we're going to focus more on numbers today, is what's your personal budget? Like what is your current lifestyle? You may live in a 1-bedroom apartment. You may have a home and a spouse and children. All of it's your situation, but have you modeled the baseline? In goal setting, I find it very important. We need to keep it simple. We need to keep it manageable, or else you get overwhelmed very, very quickly. We need to put accountability measures in place. There needs to be a buddy system. You need to have somebody that you interact with regularity. It could be annually, it could be biannually. Anna said the word initiative on the call. Very important. If you want this, if you want to be coached, if you want that guidance, if you want that interaction, you need to seek it out. One thing I've experienced over the course of my career, colleagues, mentors, it's very easy to find them. You just have to ask. Very rarely, if ever, have I been told no when I've been seeking help from others in the firm. But it's that kind of internal, maybe fear. Some of us are actually shy, although we're in brokerage. and we convince ourselves, hey, I don't want to bug this person. But if you just reach out and ask people for help, again, you're going to get it. It's the culture. It's why JLL is so amazing. And then ultimately, analysis paralysis. Move one piece of paper to the other side of my desk. I should actually do a little bit more research on the CFO. Take action. We're going to talk a little bit more about just taking action and making things happen. You'll see a quote at the bottom of the page. In brokerage, without a doubt, I think 100%, maybe 99% of you can relate to this quote. You'll leave the office today or your home, you'll have had a very busy day. It's almost impossible not to be busy in brokerage. But the question is, were you productive? Did you really actually get done the things that you were supposed to do? And did those things relate to the goals that you had committed to accomplish? Now let's get down to how we start to keep it simple and measure and benchmark. And so now, again, full disclaimer, there's going to be a lot of numbers on the page, and I'm going to do my best to make this a little exciting for those that get that'll fall asleep looking at Excel spreadsheets. What we did a while ago is we put a master's class together for our associates, and I tend to send this out when we have new hires join our team, just to give them an example. And what we did was we said, hey, listen, give us your budget. And not calling out anybody in particular, we went through it all to create a personal budget, from your monthly rent to your car payments, student loans, gym membership. We had some fun with this. You're going out on dates, you're shopping, you got credit card bills, all this stuff, right? And so at the end, at the bottom of the page, you'll see it adds up to around $4,400 a month. Again, make this your own. You get the point. But then at the bottom, you'll see we've captured what your total cash spend is on an annual basis, around $51,000 a year. Some people have never done this. So if you haven't, and it's just, you're writing down your bills, or you got a notebook, or you just kind of do it online every month, and you've never truly kind of captured it in one document, I encourage you to do that. It really is helpful. And I'll get to why that is. And so we've developed a baseline in this example specifically of $51,000, okay? So now we at least know what our current spend is, what our current quality of life is. Now we have our business. We've got what's called a WIP. Most of us have heard of WIP. It's work in process. It's essentially, what do you have going in the pipeline when you meet with your leader, your manager, and you say, how many deals am I working on? It all comes down to how much money are you bringing in. We are in brokerage. For the most people in JLL, regardless of the service line you're in, we got to bring home the bacon. And at the end of the day, the numbers are you. And while qualitatively we'll have a lot of goals, at the end of the day, leaders will remember one thing, and that's how much money you brought in. And there are other important, characteristics out there, but in JLL and in brokerage, this is exactly what matters more oftentimes than not, especially when times are tough. And so it's important that you are also tracking your work in process. However, the first goal in understanding what I need to be doing and where my energy needs to be focused on is I need to pay my bills. So if you look in the top left-hand corner, you'll see, what do I need to do to reach my goal of $51,961? And so this is an Excel spreadsheet that mimics what we tend to model and break down on deals. So you'll see square footage, rental rate, lease term, JLL commission, the broker split, and then broker gross commission after the split. This is like your method of measurement. If you want to get a JLL award, your top achiever, gold achiever, top gun, this is what that breaks down into. And then you've got to split the money with the house. Then you've got after tax funds. And let me minimize my screen here. I'm going to move your pretty faces so I can see the rest of my slide. And then you'll see after tax take home. So we've got kind of granular here. the whole point is, so we can go bottom right-hand corner, how do we solve for the 51,961? Gross, you'll see it's 148,000 after these deals, okay? So you say, what should my first goal be? Really, it's Mr. Manager, Mrs. Manager, I'm going to gross $150,000. And they'll say, well, okay, that's, or 148,460. And they'd be impressed by the level of specificity of your goal. And you'd back into why that is. And then you'd study your market. Everybody's markets are different. Usually average size tenants, 3,000, 5,000 square feet, even though the 20s, 40s, 50s, the big dogs get all the attention on the front page of the Business Journal. The majority of our time is spent on those 5 to 10,000 square foot deals. I don't care, what country you live in. That's the reality that we have in our business. And so if you study the market and you understand the dynamics of the market, and COVID, we're in interesting times. So it's important that we know what we need to do to accomplish the goal. You'll see that there are numbers next to the square footages. And so this just provides another layer of insight into, okay, if I wanted just to do 6,000 square foot deals, how many of these would I need to do? 6. I could do 3 7s. I could do 12 4,500 square foot deals, 11 3,000 square foot deals, or 3 10,000 square foot deals. All of the red font is variable. You can tweak it. If you may be thinking, hey, I see their $50 rental rates. Must be nice, Joe. You can change it to 25. You can change it to 12 bucks triple net. You can do whatever you want. And it all adjusts and it all solves for your personal budget. So you at least know out of the gate, you hear all these numbers, gold achiever, top achiever, all this stuff. It's like, it's overwhelming. All you care about is taking care of your family, first and foremost. There's a lot of other things, that are on your goal sheet. But at the end of the day, where you lay your head at night, the people you're supporting matters most. And so you need to know what you're doing is taking care of those folks. So right now we've created a outline on your WIP that communicates directly to your personal budget. So now we have clarity. We have a goal. First goal, I need to get to 148,460. That's a qualitative metric. As we scroll down here, this is just another box that now informs a next level of goal setting. So we've got a budget of 51,961. Is the budget covered? It says no as of right now, because either did or didn't. I think that might have been a cell that didn't convert in my PDF, by the way. But then we say, okay, I'm hearing about top achiever and gold achiever, and I hear about this academy that happens every year. But I'm not invited. Why am I not invited? Well, if you're not a top achiever, you don't get invited. That actually wasn't the case when I first started going to academy. But as the company has grown, you can only accommodate so many people in a room at any given time. And so we recognize those that have achieved a top achiever metric. It's a phenomenal event, a great celebration. I love academy. And so you want to get on the plane, right? You want to make the trip. And so that's another goal. I want to make the trip. I want to be a top achiever. How far am I to achieving top achiever? You see here, there's a shortfall of $301,540. Very specific, right? That's how much you're short. Do you want to be a gold achiever? $600,000 short, Top Gun 1.3. Don't be discouraged that you're so far off that goal. The first goal shouldn't be Top Gun. It should be cover my cost, make sure we're paying our bills. Then it's, where does the company recognize production first and foremost? The next really layer is top achiever. So that's just another metric that you want to be able to solve for. And then you can work within this spreadsheet based upon the dynamics of your market, the prospects that you have in process, and the clients that you have to know how close or how far away you are to achieving those goals. Some of you may be curious, okay, I want to know how I can become a top achiever, gold achiever. What does this look like? So we created the top achiever, Top Gun matrix. It coincides to any market, doesn't matter what your rental rates are, what your average lease term is, doesn't matter. And so what this solves for, you'll see in red, the font in red is variable. You can adjust it. And so in this example, and this is solving for top achiever, specifically our first goal. If you did a deal at $55 a square foot, again, I'm just made up numbers, at 7-year rental rates, 4% commission, you have to do 13 deals, 5,000 square feet, total commission 77,000. If you're split on that deal's 50%, right? I mean, normally we work in teams, we partner. My average percentage on any given deal that I generate on average is around 33%, because I like to surround myself with a lot of partners. I like to be in the operating room with all the specialists, and that's just on average is how that pencils out for me. And so you need to just be very clear with your partners what your percentage is at that appropriate time, which is important. Get you to a gross amount, and then it follows the same sequence as the other spreadsheets did. I always focus on the right-hand column. It's cash. You can't buy a house on gross revenue. It's cash, right? You can't buy groceries with gross. It's cash. So you go to the right and you see how quickly 77,000 becomes 13,000, right? So you really need to read our spreadsheets from right to left and kind of reverse engineer, again, knowing the why first and foremost, and understanding how many deals you got to do. And saying, okay, I'm spending a lot of my time on 2,000 and 3,000 square foot deals, which is not uncommon, right? I'm doing a lot of subleasing, not uncommon, but you need to have an awareness. You need to know what that North Star is and how far you are from that North Star to say, okay, I'm not even working on a 5,000 square foot deal. This is a problem. Like, I'm not even in top achiever territory. So how do I position myself to do that? And what companies am I calling on? What, out of my top 20, top 50 prospects, how many of those fall within this range? How likely am I going to, that I am to convert those to clients? And then you can really start to get some familiarity with, maybe in year 22, I could put myself in a position to be a top achiever in the event X, Y, and Z happens. And that's what this does, is it gives you greater clarity and awareness around it. Another thing that's important, not only to me, but you and a lot of our colleagues, title progression. We want to get promoted, right? We want to advance throughout the organization. I don't know anybody that isn't inspired by being promoted. Here is what we have in Mid-Atlantic specifically. And so we are very transparent around what it takes. And I'm sure you and Regions have something very similar, what it takes to be promoted, and then the performance criteria associated with each promotion. Pretty standard as far as what your quantitative production needs to be to advance throughout the organization, consistent revenue over 2 years, 3 years, and then ultimately 5 years once we get to our highest title of executive managing director and what that production needs to be. And so what we do is over communicate to our team year over year and let them know, hey, listen, you should know last year, you grossed 200,000 or 100,000. You need to gross 140 this year to be promoted to senior associate, or you need 225 to graduate to VP. And so it never fails. You're working on a transaction, it's towards the end of the year, and everybody always typically thinks, it's already November, it's December. I'd love to start the year with a $50,000 commission. That would be nice, just to start the year off strong. But what you might be not realizing is you're so close to being promoted. And if you miss that window, it's going to take you another year to get back to, or 2 years, if you've missed the window, to be eligible for that VP promotion or that senior VP promotion. And my goodness, what a shame that would be if you weren't aware of the metrics required for you to get that next level promotion, which you're working so hard. You want that title to reflect where you are in your progression. You could be in one year, or you could be 5 years. Like me, I wanted to be the youngest managing director in the company. I just, I'm like that merit badge type of person, in that I just looked at the numbers. I'm like, I know what I need to do. I love this business because it just rewards performance and hard work. There's nothing else standing in my way. I know what I got to do. I'm going to do it. And every year I just kind of made my way a little bit closer and closer towards those goals. And that clarity served to be tremendous currency for me. So now you may be asking, okay, what do I got to do to get all that done? And so I'm a big time management person. And I find, again, back to the busyness comment, if you don't have a plan for yourself, someone else will. And what I mean by that is you come into the office, you're kind of walking to the coffee pot, you're getting your coffee, you're getting your list written down again, the same list you wrote yesterday. Now it's 9:30, and then someone, talks to you, and then next thing you know, it's 10, and then someone says, hey, you got a second, and then you get it. And then next thing you know, it's lunch, and I should eat lunch before I, get started on my calls. And it goes on and on and on. And so we are very focused on what we call chunking and time blocking. And so having a plan before you come into the office on Friday of the previous week, really having a strong directional understanding of the way the week is going to go. And this is very prescriptive. So from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., we want to know, and I don't, by the way, request this of our associates. This is something that we provide them as a tool and as a resource. In the early innings of their career here, we're a bit more attentive to this until habits are formed, until they're developing, accountability. And we know, okay, hey, if you choose to use this, feel free. But again, once they start off, if they really need oversight, this is something that I'll lean in on just so they can develop some better habits. But you'll see calls are in here. And I think I heard Anna allude to over 50% of your time on business development. You'll see so much business development is focused in here, but you need to be tremendously protective of your time. Even in this pandemic, I've never worked harder in my life, ever. Last year, I mean, just exhausted, working as hard as we were, feeling like, we were like a hamster on a wheel, just running and running and running and talking about reentry and everything else. But I was just focused on my goal. I didn't lower my goals. I increased my effort. That's a key takeaway here. We have to stay focused on the goal. The goal can't change. The effort has to increase if the situation that we're in changes. And in some cases, a pandemic, I mean, I'm not going to discard how serious it was and how big of an impact it had on our industry. But I didn't say to myself, hey, I'll get an asterisk on my scorecard this year. I'm not going to make Top Gun this year. People will understand. I didn't say that. I have developed those habits and I just worked my way through it. And fortunately, we accomplished the goal that we wanted to achieve last year during the pandemic because of the habits that I had developed over such an extended period of time, doing these things and just being maniacal about time management and being very specific about my weekly goals, my monthly goals, my daily goals, and keeping my sanity, knowing that, hey, I did everything I could. I left it all on the field today. It's a Monday, and now I gotta recover during these crazy times. So a couple more tools, and then we'll wrap it up. I told you you're going to get a little bit overload here, but I apologize, and you're only getting like 30% of what I shared with Ashley and Casey before. So outreach, emails, attending events, calls, all of these things, I firmly believe you need to measure it. And so we created a spreadsheet that monitors output. And it not only measures output, it measures effort. And for me, as a leader, I like to see, are you working hard? Are you doing everything that you can to get a hold of new companies, generate new business, retain business, generate new relationships? And there's multiple ways of going about doing that, right? I mean, we all know there's emails. You can attend events in person or virtually. You make cold calls or warm calls. And then we need to measure how many folks have you contacted, right? How many meetings have you generated from the contacts that you've made? And then what are the results? I mean, wins. This is the scoreboard, right? We read the spreadsheets from right to left, not left to right. From right to left, meaning backwards. How many deals have we won this year? And then again, it gets back to the previous spreadsheet. What size are those deals? Is it in line with our goal? Is it taking advantage of the goal that we have set? Are we taking advantage of adhering to our standard of living and all of those things? But what this does is it adds up to a particular number. And what happens is over time, you measure your output, you know what times a day you're most productive, you have that self-awareness, you know, am I a morning person? Am I best in the afternoon? Am I super sharp on Tuesday? Am I dragging on Monday? You know, how do I align my time and prioritize? And so this also summarizes everything. And so you know where you hit the best marks as far as when am I getting a hold of the most people? When am I getting the most meetings? What time of day? It summarizes all this up. And you'll see some consistency and some patterns here on this. You're not really meant to really pinpoint a particular day. For me, as I got busier and busier, and you make calls, you set meetings, and you get hired, that's a good thing, but it ends up, being a big problem for business development. You're like, oh gosh, now I don't have time to make calls because I need to obviously get these deals done and get paid. That's the whole point, right? But then if you backtrack and look at your call tracker and you say, well, wait a second, Thursday mornings look like they were the most productive time for me as far as calls to contacts and then meetings between Thursday and Friday morning. I was a rock star, relatively speaking, to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So now I'm saying I'm going to stick to the Thursday, Friday routine because I just don't have time to make calls every single day and generate 50% of my time. If anything, now it's 10%. And when I do, I need to take immediate action and I focus on the times a day that I think are most important. And this spreadsheet has been super helpful for me to really pinpoint times that have been most productive in the past. And what this also teaches me and has taught me over the years is, you're staring up like a Mount Everest of prospects. No one's calling you back. Everyone's out. No one's working in the office, and you're telling yourself all these things. But if you just maintain those habits that Anna alluded to earlier, you tend to overestimate and really kind of be overly hard on yourself in the short term about what is possible. You overestimate, but more oftentimes than not, we underestimate what can be accomplished if you just stay consistent and you keep those reps going and you show up every day, you stick to your game plan, you monitor the time blocks that you've committed to, and you just commit to that. It is an euphoric feeling at the end of the day, knowing I stuck to my plan, I was diligent, and I left it all on the field, and it was a Monday. You've got that momentum, and then that continues to carry on and compound and build on itself. This is a little slide that just inspires me. Michael Jordan's like one of my childhood heroes, so you'll have to excuse the example here. Everyone's got their own heroes, but one thing that I think is a takeaway here, and it's applicable in our business. We go to Academy, or you get these emails from our leaders about these huge deals that our colleagues are doing, and you sometimes think, well, gosh, must be nice, or I wish I could do something like that, or what's their secret sauce? But when you peel the onion back, you realize, holy cow, these people work and have worked harder than I've ever even thought of or dreamt of working. And you just see the time and effort that Michael Jordan put in and day out, and obviously spoke for themselves and speak for themselves. There's millions of other examples that we can come up with, but the same is true when you think about you're in the office or you're at home, you're alone, there's nobody else around, there's no one else to encourage you or to inspire you. You have to show that initiative. You got to pick up the phone. You got to write that email. You got to write that handwritten note. All that stuff that you don't want to do, you can check out at 3 o'clock because it's a beautiful day. You can do all of that. But You're not going to get the rings if you do that. You're just not going to be asked 22 years later to speak to a bunch of amazing people on a conference call at 1:30 in the afternoon. If you do that, it's not going to happen. There's some other things that I firmly believe in and subscribe to is feeding your mind. I just took a picture of some books literally this morning on my bookshelf that I've been inspired by, that I feel are applicable specifically to business development. Some of these are classics, some of them you may have heard of, but there's some key takeaways from a lot of these books, in that you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? There's so many clues out there. So many people have achieved success. In this day and age, there's a zillion podcasts out there that inspire, that teach, that can get you in a positive frame of mind, that can put you in a place that you're going to be ready to just own the day. Take advantage of these resources. And if you're not investing the time and prioritizing your time to feed your mind, you're really operating at a disadvantage, because I feel like if you're in your head, you're dead, and you need to continue to build that muscle and fuel the engine, and your beliefs control your behavior. If you believe that you're going to kick ass today, pardon my French, and you're going to get that meeting, or you're going to do what needs to be done, you're going to do it. And it's just as simple as that. Or if you're just, it's a pandemic and doesn't look like anybody's out on the street today, and it's just, you're going to get what you expect. And where focus goes, energy flows. And back to keeping it simple, last slide here. This is mindset, right? Just, how am I ever going to get this done? How am I ever going to break through? How am I ever going to be a top achiever? Just do it. Just take action. Take action. And then lastly, I love the lion. The lion inspires me. This quote I saw, I think on Instagram, and I just love it. And you just think of a lion out in the safari. What will the lion not do? It's not going to eat grass. There's grass everywhere. There are those 1,000-foot deals everywhere. But the lion's focused on these goals, these big, audacious, ambitious goals that he or she has set for itself. And they're not going to lower their standards, because they're lions. And we're lions at JLL, right? You could work for any other real estate company, and you could name a dozen of them. They're not us. You work for us, you're a lion, and we need to create lion goals. And that is my last slide.
That was awesome. Thank you, Joe. You have me thinking I really need to go home and do a little more detailed budgeting of my my financial planning for this year. I had a quick question for you, and we'll open it up to anyone else with questions as well. But one thing that I think I struggle with, and I know a lot of people who are, fairly new to this struggle with, is knowing when to say no to certain things. Everything feels like at this stage an opportunity to learn, to get a chance to hone more transaction skills, or if it's to work on maybe like a targeted business development piece to learn a little bit more about a different angle. And sometimes I'll find myself like, oh my gosh, I've done no business development today because I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off over all these small deals. So I just wonder, like, with you have associates who are newer into the business, how do you advise them on kind of some of that stuff and to stay focused?
Yeah, I mean, it's a delicate balance, but I think it gets back to my comment earlier of don't lower your goals, increase your effort. And so you don't want to turn down opportunities if you've got a senior broker, that's on the window line, or, that's been in the business, and they you can tell they want to invest time in you, or they want you to sit in on this call, or they want you to attend a meeting. You don't want to turn that down because, hey, I'm sorry, I've got my goal of my 5,000 square foot meeting. Can we schedule this later? And then they'll never talk to you again, right? You have to take advantage of those opportunities. And so your business plan is like a playbook. And so think of a playbook, and I'm guilty of a lot of sports analogies, but for football specifically, you'll see the coaches are literally holding this book, this binder, or they've got this card that's laminated with a zillion plays on it. The game is being played while they're calling different plays, but they've got the playbook. That's one constant. And so you need to have flexibility, but the ultimate goal is to score more points than the other team, to win the game. And so the habits that you form over time, Casey, I think is the most important takeaway. If you don't follow it to a T, don't, join the self-beaters club and kick your butt, and say, I didn't accomplish my goals today. Take every advantage of that interaction. It's going to accelerate your development. You're going to learn something new, but know that the awareness that you have that typically the 20 emails connects you to those 2 companies. And then, it takes you about 10 contacts to land that meeting, and you've only connected with 1, and you need to get those other 9 before the end of the week. Having that in your conscience is a game changer. But it's not an either or. It's an and.
That's a good mindset to have. And always good to hear. I think one thing I've realized since working at JLL is I hear things like that from my team members all the time right here in Raleigh. Don't beat yourself up about it. You're doing great on this or that. And it's always nice to hear that from other people in other offices as well, that, this is kind of a universal thing that we're all struggling with to figure out. But I know we're at the bottom of the hour here. So thank you both, Joe and Anna. You've given us so much to think about. Would love if you're willing to share template versions of what you shared today, and Joe, your slides, so that we can send them out to the group, especially those books that you had at the end of your slide deck there, Joe. Will include some recommendations for people after this. But if no one else has any questions, I think that's all we've got for today.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
This is awesome. Thank you so much for your time.